Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Staffordshire Leaders Board today, Thursday, the 9th of March, 2023. First item on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies, Mr. Luscombe, or whoever's?
Yes. Thank you, Leader. So we have apologies from Councillor Patrick Farrington, Olivia Lyons, George Allen, and Councillor Jeremy Oates.
Thank you. Second item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Does anybody have any interests to declare? For the record, nobody is indicating. Item number 3 is minutes of the previous meeting. I'll just take them for accuracy. Page 1, 2, 3, and 4. Are you content that I sign those off as a correct record of the previous meeting? Thank you. Agenda item number 5 is the update from the Chair. Welcome to the first meeting of Staffordshire's Leaders Board for 2023. One of the key aims of this Leaders Board is to deliver growth and drive forward our shared economic growth aspirations for the county, district and boroughs as a whole. It was therefore great to have the fantastic news at the start of the year of some success in the Levelling Up Fund Round 2 bids. Prior to this round, Staffordshire local authorities had already secured over £130 million in investment through Future High Streets Fund, Town Deals and Levelling Up Fund Round 1 for town centres across the county. This board undertook to promote further bids for LUF 2, highlighting the strength of our joined-up approach. This undoubtedly helped to secure a further £17.1 million for Leek Town Centre and £20 million for investment in our own transport infrastructure, including enabling improved and greener access to our town centres. There was great news for Lichfield too in a recent report by EY, which revealed that Lichfield is set to record the West Midlands' fastest annual improvement in economic performance between 2024 and 2026, which is a real tribute to Lichfield District Council, its councillors and officers. And it is set to become the UK's joint 4th fastest growing location over the same period, which is absolutely tremendous. So congratulations to Lichfield District for the work they're doing there. After a difficult couple of years for many businesses, there's a real sense that our local economy is flourishing once again. We have a packed skills and employment agenda in the county, and our new startup hubs are a great way for people interested in becoming self-employed to find out more and how to take that first step. Our libraries in every district and borough are now offering a dedicated space allocated for startup promotional materials, leaflets, business-related reading books and information fact sheets. And for our startup sessions running in March, we've teamed up with Business Enterprise Support, who will be able to provide information and signpost people to other sources of information and agencies. We have a strong track record for startup survival in the county, which is higher than the national average, and it's really encouraging that Staffordshire is providing the right environment for startup businesses to grow and thrive, and vitally, to operate successfully through the difficult first few years. Turning to asylum seekers. The issue of how we manage the increasing number of asylum seekers coming to the county is never far away from the headlines. In Staffordshire, we have always played our part in supporting those fleeing war or persecution, and we will continue to do so. However, it is hugely important that local authorities are fully engaged in the planning stages to ensure that both the locations are suitable and that the wraparound support is available for the asylum seekers. Last month, representatives from this board joined MP Kate Kniveton in a face-to-face meeting with the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, at Westminster. It gave us a useful opportunity to discuss the issues we currently face and to press for the need for closer collaboration with the Home Office and its partner Serco moving forward. I'm going to turn now to the Armed Forces Community Covenant. In Staffordshire, we are hugely proud of our links to the Armed Forces and are honoured to be home to the National Memorial Arboretum. And so as council leaders, we had no hesitation in joining together to reaffirm our commitment to the county's Armed Forces community and to encourage other organisations to pledge their support. The covenant is a promise to the nation promised by the nation, ensuring that those who serve or have served and their families are treated fairly, and ensuring all members of the Armed Forces community have the same access to public and commercial services as any other citizen does. The declaration builds upon already strong relationships between partners to ensure the principles of the covenant are upheld locally. And finally, the forthcoming Staffordshire Day and the coronation. Looking ahead slightly, board members will be supporting our local communities to celebrate the coronation of King Charles III on May the 6th. Coming just days after our own Staffordshire Day, the extra long weekend will give people a chance to mark this historic event with friends, families and their local communities. All the members here today will be flying the flag and helping people and businesses to enjoy the celebrations with a host of county-wide events. So we would encourage everyone to soak up the feel-good factor and get involved and support the local street parties, coronation big lunches and a big help-out day on the Monday where we can. Thank you. So let's turn to today's agenda. The first item is agenda item number 5 is economic vision and priorities. Who's going to lead off on that? Mr. Ayres.
Thank you and good morning everyone. Attached to this document and to the paper here is in the appendix is the actual strategy itself, which we'll be asking the board today to sign off. This is a joint piece of work highlighting our shared ambition across Staffordshire as local authorities. And we believe that this strategy will really set out clearly what our priorities are for the economy, something that we can communicate effectively to our businesses, our residents, and to external partners and future investors. The document sets out a shared vision that people across Staffordshire will benefit from more and better paid jobs in one of the UK's primary locations for sustainable green growth and investment, creating places we can all be proud of, driven by innovation and new technologies. The strategy then sets out our shared priorities, which are around our town centres, developing our rural and visitor economies, optimising small businesses and start-up support, skills development, which is later on the agenda, the infrastructure development required to support housing and business-led growth, exploiting our strategic growth corridors, such as the work currently being done around the A50 and A500, addressing climate change and supporting green growth, and then finally supporting Staffordshire's development of its culture, leisure and heritage offer. So it's a really exciting strategy, I think, that allows us to communicate effectively about our priorities. And the bit that really stands out is towards the back of the document is a summary of each of the offers for each district and borough area around its economic strengths and what's being done to support that economy currently. So it really gives a good feel for the total offer across the county and the differences we have in each of our areas. And that's the summary.
I'm very attracted to the idea of attributing growth to particular areas. So when you go to the back of the document, you can see, for example, Tamworth. We highlight, in partnership with Tamworth, these highlights were derived by speaking to the borough, £40 million town centre investment. Staffordshire Moorlands, £21 million of investment. This is on page 24. So most of the councils seem to have opted for the cash that's gone in. Lichfield has gone for the Michelin star restaurant, which I've been to, is wonderful and is actually driving a lot of the improvement in many of the retail outlets and dining outlets in Lichfield. And given the sort of visitor nature of Lichfield city in particular, and of course there's other attributes around Burntwood and the rural areas, a great thing to highlight. So I would ask you to, in particular, leaders, to take a look at this document in detail, make sure that the thing that you've highlighted really speaks to you, because when we go to the United Kingdom investment show in Leeds in May, this will be the document we will be rolling out. Hopefully you and your colleagues will be joining us in Leeds, and we'll be promoting madly the offer that Staffordshire and its partner districts and boroughs have using this document. So it's got to be right for you and therefore right for the county. Does anybody have any comments on the scope of the document as it stands? Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Councillor White. I really welcome this, and I think it's a great document. As it says in the report, we're one of the largest economic areas within the West Midlands when we're all taken together, and we've got this 10-year vision really set out in this document for take our economies across the county forward. And we've also got that key pipeline of schemes which sit behind this, which we can promote, and also in our investment prospectus. I think for me, as leader of Newcastle Borough Council, I think it allows us to punch above our weight when we go to national events to plug our regeneration opportunities in our borough. For example, the Rycroft and the town centre regeneration, which we've got Future High Street Fund and Town Deal money for. I think it's better we punching above our weight when we work together as a county. Is the best approach, as you said, Councillor White. When we go to those national events, we can then certainly act as a team. I think we can develop that as we go forward, and a lot of areas do that, and I'm really pleased now that Staffordshire is beginning to do that, so really endorse this document. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope as many of you as possible are able to join us in Leeds. We've got a dinner lined up for you and your chief executives with some investors who we can pitch this document to. Accompanying this is other collateral, which I've just seen this morning for the first time, and one of the videos of Staffordshire, and it's shots of all around the county, each district and borough, is so good it makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. And the key thing I'm really keen to do is not focus on buildings and tarmac and concrete, but focusing on the people, because it's the people of this county that make it a really great place, and the attributes that they bring to it. So I can't wait for you to see that video, and hopefully you'll be able to join us in Leeds in May. Any other questions or comments? So there are two recommendations, and if Dave Haywood were here, he would be... Sorry, somebody indicating? No? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the brochure and everything, I'd like to thank the officers for the tremendous amount of work they've put in to get everything across, and I find it very informative, and I think that people will realise what Staffordshire is with this voucher, with this brochure.
Thanks, Councillor Roberts. If Dave Haywood, the Chief Executive of South Staffs, were here, he would be reading the recommendations at the moment. He is the principal sponsor of this, and I'd like to thank him, and thank you, Councillor Roberts, for bringing the thanks to the officers for the hard work that they put into this. There are two recommendations. The first is that you approve the final version of the economic vision and priorities, and the second is that you agree for a supporting delivery plan to be developed by the Economic Growth Directors Group over the coming months to be considered by the Leaders Board in the summer. They are the recommendations. All those in favour? For the record, that is unanimous. Agenda item number 6 is the Economic Growth Programme update. And again, if Mr Haywood were here, he would be leading on that, but unfortunately he's not been able to make it today. So in his stead, we have Mr Ayres. Darryl, if you take it away, please.
Okay, so this item follows really nicely from the previous item. It sets out the work that we are undertaking jointly and individually in really driving growth in our economy and supporting the growth of our economy. And the chief executives and officers are monitoring the progress of these activities on a regular basis, and this is a report up to you as a board on the progress made to date. As is already said, we've been very successful as an area in securing external funding, so one of the top line areas we've been looking at is how we deliver over £200 million of external funding from government over the last few years into Staffordshire's economy, delivered for individual projects in each patch, making sure we're supporting each other to deliver those successfully and make a difference on the ground. As part of that, we recently produced a brochure that summarised our shared submission to government on LUF 2 for investment, further investment into the county. And as we know, we were successful at securing around £37 million investment through Levelling Up Fund Round 2. And we now move into delivery to make sure those projects actually happen on the ground. So that was the first area of delivery to highlight. The second area is the work that we've been doing with the local enterprise partnership locally as they change their role nationally to be a voice of business, to make sure that businesses are heard when we develop our strategies, when we develop our priorities. And through the Leaders Board, we have set them a small number of grand challenges to make sure they can really capture the voice of business and we can understand what those issues are on the ground. And the document sets out the work we've done around that, with a particular focus on the green economy in the first instance. The next area of work is around developing a growth pipeline. So each local authority has identified those top economic priorities we want to see delivered over the next few years. This has been pulled together into a single pipeline that we can use as part of those conversations with investors and within government going forward, making sure we're developing the business cases for future investments. As part of that, we've identified a small number of big strategic projects we would like to work on jointly, those being around innovation, new science parks and green skills. So we are collectively working on developing those business cases further as we speak. The UK investment event has just been mentioned. That's happening in May. We are updating our investment prospectus, our shared investment prospectus under We Are Staffordshire, that tells a really compelling story about all the investment opportunities available across everyone's patch in Staffordshire. And that new document, along with the strategy that we've just approved, will be shared and launched at that event. And then finally, we've been doing some detailed work around opportunities to be more consistent and joined up around how we approach spatial planning across Staffordshire to really benefit our communities and benefit the economy. So that's my summary of the work done today.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a point in public, which I have made previously in public, around the way government encourages councils to bid for funding. I don't think it's a very efficient process at all. I think districts and boroughs and the county put in a tremendous amount of effort to try and secure funding, reaching for the carrot that is being dangled in front of us by central government. And sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not successful. But in order to get to first base with a bid, you've got to build up a level of expectation amongst the people that you represent. And when those bids are unsuccessful, they are understandably disappointed. And you're left with a lot of you've had to divert a lot of resources. We've had to divert a lot of resources into these bids. This piecemeal bidding process needs to stop. We need to have some certainty around the funding that we can invest in our local areas, because for those people that are successful, and I'm looking at, say, Cannock, for example, if you are successful in securing the funding, you've then got to mobilise a huge amount of resources in order to successfully spend the money on the project that you bid into anyway. And in the meantime, inflation raging away in the construction sector means that the amount that you bid for originally may not represent the full cost of the project by the time you get to completion. I would appeal to government, once again, to stop with this piecemeal bidding process for funding, for essential funding for services and infrastructure improvements that people want in our area of Staffordshire and within the districts and boroughs. It has to stop. It's not satisfactory in any way, shape or form. That said, I'm trying to switch from being grumpy to being positive. There's an awful lot going on here, which is absolutely tremendous. And in particular, the LUF 2 bids that have been successful in Leek, which is tremendous effort for Councillor Roberts and his team, is good news for the people we represent, but a lot of work once you've won those bids. So just any comments from members of the board on the back of that? That was a minor rant on my part, I appreciate that, but Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Councillor White. I think you've hit the nail on the head there with the way we have to apply for funding, but I think on the positive side, for my borough, particularly Newcastle-under-Lyme, we've never had this sort of investment before, over £56 million in both Future High Street Fund and Town Deal for us to regenerate our town. So I celebrate that. I think it's great. I really, as I touched on earlier, this economic growth pipeline is key for me, because opportunities will arise for us to apply for more next rounds of LUF and whatever they may call it then. I think to have opportunities to bid for major projects, certainly in the borough, we have made sure we've got our projects on that list, which is really key. Just like to emphasise the green economy, as Darrell has said about developing that. That's an opportunity for us as we move forward. I think it's something we need to be at the forefront of as a county and as boroughs and districts working together, and I think we are getting there with that, and I think that's really key for the future, for job opportunities. And then just lastly, I think really welcome the bringing together of local plans really across the board, so that we can have a standard across the board, not only for net zero, of course, but also for building standards in other ways, and how we use our land for business development and for housing development. And I think that will make, again, as a united opportunity to be an area that you can come and you can set up your business. You can also come and develop housing. we've got a plan, we've got a really good leisure offer, we've got a lovely countryside, and we've got really nice towns and villages. So this is bringing that all together into an offer that makes Staffordshire really a place to come and every district within it to come and live and work and enjoy your time. Thank you.
Councillor Pullen.
Thanks, Councillor White. So just add my voice to that. Clearly very upset for obvious reasons about levelling up funding, but certainly my views about that preceded our unsuccessful LUF bid. And I think if government really wants to have a levelling up agenda, the people around this table know best, Staffordshire best, and where that funding should go. And taking the decisions about that funding further away into Whitehall is a long-standing theme that I press hard whenever I can. But in terms of the local enterprise, specifically in this paper, and the grand challenges highlighted at 3.4, fundamentally agree with this focus that we are laser focused on the key issues. Like we know politically it's about making hard choices, and actually we're far better off identifying a small number of issues that we can successfully tackle head on and show real progress, rather than trying to be everything to all people and just spreading ourselves so thin that we actually achieve very little over a course of time. So really just kind of a comment on that absolutely a position I fully back.
In other parts of the public sector, for example with our NHS partners, we have a multitude of things we're supposed to be tackling simultaneously. And that failure to tackle one or two things really well, for example in the NHS, the frail elderly pathway, means that nobody really benefits at all, because you're not making significant progress on anything. And so I'm quite keen with the grand challenges theme that we do focus on one or two big things, maybe three big things. If I could just turn briefly to spatial planning. This is your area, the districts and borough areas. But I do sense, and I have sensed over the years, that there is a need to cooperate better on spatial planning at a sort of grander level when we're thinking about, for example, new settlements or new business developments around the county, and how we can fit it together with the existing infrastructure. This is not the recrudescence of the county structure plan, which for those of you who've been around for a while, I see Councillor Tagg nodding, for those of you who've been around a while, was absolutely hated. It was a top-down imposition. Spatial planning is about, as described here, is about discussing together those opportunities that we can take forward in partnership where they're deemed suitable, not any endeavour at all for any sort of top-down imposition. So they are the key components of the paper. Does anybody have any final comments before we move to the recommendations? The recommendations that you've got in front of you are two, that you note the work already undertaken by the Leaders Board and supporting officer groups, including successes in helping to secure investments in the county. And the second one is to consider and comment upon the progress being made by on the many shared projects and programmes outlined in the report that are being progressed jointly by the Staffordshire local authorities. And again, before Councillor Roberts chips in and says thanks to the officers, I'll do it this time. Thank you for all the work that's going on this. Without the support of the officers across each of the districts and boroughs, we wouldn't be making the progress that we are, so thank you. You've heard those two recommendations. Those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is Staffordshire Employment and Skills Strategy. Once again, you see, I wonder if Mr Hayward's dodged this meeting deliberately, because it's all about Dave Hayward today, and he's not here. So, Mrs Roberts, if you can take back to Mr Hayward that he was missed and that he dodged that particular bullet, that would be wonderful. For the Employment and Skills Strategy, nominally led by Dave Hayward, but we have with us Mr Baines and Mr Ayres, who will, one might introduce the report and the other might talk about it, or one just might do both of those things simultaneously. Mr Baines, you're going to give us the whole shooting match. We're with you.
Thank you very much, Leader. So there you have a paper setting out for you the employment and skills strategies that we see for Staffordshire. This forms the framework for the design of a wider Staffordshire employment and skills strategy. And this strategy is being developed to help support the economic vision and priorities we've heard about already this morning, and also to inform the development of the local skills improvement plan already underway for Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire. Why we need this strategy is for several reasons. It sets out the skills ambitions for Staffordshire to inform any devolution deal. It provides the skills priorities to inform new accountability statements required from education providers, and it fills the vacuum with the changing nature of the local enterprise partnership and the cessation of the skills advisory panel. But importantly, it forms the basis for any ask to government on any future devolution deals and investments in skills that we see, and help shape the market in terms of the skills priorities we need to deliver a productive economy in Staffordshire. The overall aim of the strategy is to build on our recent employment skills improvements we've seen in the local economy, to transform that labour force into a high-skilled, high-wage and better job economy, and support that growth in economic activity. The strategy, as you'll see, has 5 main priorities, underpinned by the need to continue to develop digital and green skills to support the adoption of new innovative and productive technologies and our transition to a net zero economy. The priorities themselves look to create an informed, aspirational workforce to ensure all can access work and be productive in their life. Also to create a culture of people and businesses who want to earn and learn, train and progress, and provide the technical skills, particularly at levels 4 and 5 and through apprenticeships and higher technical qualifications that help to develop new models of delivery, such as through micro-credentials, to meet ever-changing employer demand for skills. The priorities also support innovation and enterprise to help enable more residents to start and grow their own businesses and promote strong collaboration with education institutions and employers to continue to develop high-level technical skills developed by new state-of-the-art investments such as the recent £16 million investment in the Institute of Technology. And therefore, today I'd like to seek your and consider your comments on this draft vision and priorities set out within this report.
Thank you very much indeed. Myself, Mr Henderson and others were at Keele University yesterday evening talking about just this subject and the outreach the university wants to undertake in helping people with those very important skills that are not necessarily university level, but actually creates that link between the universities and further education colleges. And I think this is part of a great offer that we have in Staffordshire, an improving offer that we have in Staffordshire. Having good employability and skills is absolutely vital if we're going to be successful. My second son has recently completed an apprenticeship at IMI Engineering in Fradley. He's not been to university. Therefore, he doesn't have any debt, and therefore he is able to get going in life, get himself set up debt-free with the skills that are very, very transferable. He's a CNC machinist. You can pick your job, really, when you've got those sort of skills, and absolutely fantastic. That's not to be derogatory about people who go to university and study anything academic or arts-orientated or not particularly practical, but there are other options. And I'm really keen that we promote those other options because they really do add value and they are needed. They are needed. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this employment and skills strategy. Exactly the same, you know, but I think we need to pick up a bit more on, as you've said, apprentices. Not everybody is technical minded and can go and sit for qualifications, and I think that we need as a council to produce more apprentices going forward, or encourage the companies and probably get some finance to them so that they can do apprentices. I mean, I served an apprentice, I've taught apprentices, you know, so I know that there is a shortage. I think when I started, as we said last time, there was 140 apprentices in my year. The following year, it went down to 2, you know, and we've lacked the skills. So I welcome this.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. I really welcome priority 3, and I think it's really the right time to really focus on that, particularly automation and AI, because we've seen over the last few months even how that has moved forward dramatically. I think over the next few years it will change the way many people work and the way education works, the way retail works, the way customer services work. And I think obviously we need to skill up our workforce to take advantage of that and the opportunities that will follow on from automation and AI. It's not necessarily going to take everybody's jobs, as we saw with the Industrial Revolution, we saw with the internet. It actually opens up more opportunities for more jobs that we can't even think of now people will be doing in 10 or 15 years. So I really emphasise priority 3 and welcome the report as a whole, as colleagues have done. But that AI and automation focus is really key for me. Thank you.
Councillor Tagg, is that the prospect of other councils being replaced by ChatGPT, is it?
We can control them more, perhaps.
Priority 2 for me is a very, very important one, which is inspirational careers advice. I appreciate it was a very, very long time ago now when I got my careers advice at school. I was about 13, 14, and it was before I took my options. And the careers advisor, who was a teacher who'd done university school, so not a great breadth of experience to draw upon in guiding me in the direction that teacher saw fit, said, "You're good at sport, I think you could be a leisure centre manager." And so whilst that was an interesting option, it wasn't very inspirational, and neither was it very aspirational. And for the majority of boys that left my school, it was an all-boys comprehensive in Stockport. The expectation was that you went down to work at Needham's, the foundry. If you look at the drains around pretty much most of the United Kingdom, you'll see it's Needham's, Stockport. And so when I said I was stepping out to go to university and join the army, a mate's dad just said to me, "What are you doing that for, lad? Just get yourself down the foundry. There's jobs there. Get yourself down the foundry." Now, there's nothing wrong with getting down the foundry, but for those people who want to lift themselves upwards and outwards, inspirational and aspirational careers advice really does help. I'm really keen that as part of this, we get an aspirational workforce, because that's how we get better, and that's how our place that we live in gets better as well. Councillor Pullen.
Thanks, Councillor White, and I'd echo all those that have gone before in terms of the other priorities. The priority I just wanted to pull out was priority 5, create a place of learning. I think the commoditisation of education is a bit of a stain on this country over the last sort of quarter of a century or so, really. And actually learning for learning's sake, and actually making that a continual piece that we do throughout our lives, so important, not just when we're sort of 11 to 18, but actually throughout our lives. And places like Lichfield are really well placed, I think, at the south of the county, to the home of the Darwins and the Lunatics, the Lunatic Society, etc. Really well placed to actually really drive that forward, not just from a sort of a skills based, but also from a sense of place and our history of driving that forward. So yeah, fully commend priority 5.
Of course, the world's first lexicographer was born in Lichfield. And for those that haven't been to Samuel Johnson Museum, a great visit, and I would implore people to go if they can. Okay, any other comments on this item? You've heard the comments, Mr. Baines. We've got some recommendations here, which I'll just quickly go through. Consider and comment upon the draft employment and skills strategy, vision and priorities set out in the report. Agree that the Economic Growth Directors Group develop the vision and priorities into a succinct document to guide future work programmes and enable effective communication of Staffordshire's shared employment and skills goal. Can I just emphasise the word succinct? I'm very keen on succinct things. Brevity is next to godliness. If it's a huge, stonking document, it doesn't get read, and I like pictures as well. Paints 1,000 words. Agree that the final draft of the document be circulated electronically to leaders for comment and agreement prior to the summer of 2023 Leaders Board meeting, and consider for sign-off the final version of the Employment and Skills Strategy at the summer 2023 Leaders Board meeting. And finally, over the page, agree that the appointed representatives on the Economic Growth Directors Group lead on the dialogue with Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire Employer Representatives Body and the development of the LSIP, with the aim of ensuring that the LSIP continues the delivery of the statutory employment and skills, vision and priorities. That's a big blooming sentence, isn't it? Those are the recommendations. All in favour? That is, for the record, that is unanimous. Right, agenda item number 8, a housekeeping matter. It is the Code of Joint Scrutiny Working Local Authorities. Mr. Tradewell, are you leading us through it, or is it Mr. Eberly? Mr. Eberly, we're with you.
Thank you, Leader. So by way of introduction, the Joint Code was first introduced in 2003, and this was very much to provide guidance to the County Council and District and Borough Councils on scrutiny processes. So the purpose of today's paper and the accompanying revised code is that the code is very much in need of a refresh. The last refresh was in 2015. And obviously in that time, it's been a change in landscape, not least within the health sector and the introduction and the impending introduction of integrated care boards, but also very much in the way that scrutiny is delivered across the county as well in terms of changes of officers. So the code has been revised and refreshed. It's been done in collaboration with all county council and district and borough scrutiny officers. And the real thrust of the joint code is that we deliver and do scrutiny in the most effective and efficient way, particularly in regard to health scrutiny. So the code is there for you all to see. The recommendations are listed in the report, and we'd very much hope that district and boroughs would take away the code and adopt within their respective constitutions. Happy to take any questions, Leader.
Anybody who works in the health landscape, as I do, Mr. Clegg does, Mr. Henderson, knows that it's a complicated affair, and there's lots of bodies going on, like the, what's it called? ICB, Integrated Care Board, Integrated Care Partnership, Integrated Care System. Take your pick, plus the trusts. The most important thing about this, of course, is holding to account those organisations for the delivery of safe health services. And where it became confused in the 2000s, people took their eye off the ball. And trusts that were determined to make sure they financially balanced forgot that their primary role was to make sure that people were safe and well and cared for within their, when they were in their charge. And that's the reason why the Stafford Hospital thing arose, and the failure of scrutiny that, that occurred on the run-up to that is well documented in the Francis Review, which I suggest that for those of you who've got a spare hour or two, just have a quick skim through that, particularly the verbatim texts of the exchanges between the barrister and councillors about the questions that were asked. In particular, there was a section where the hospital was feeding documents into the scrutiny committee, and the scrutiny committee weren't saying, well, is this all you've got? Is there anything else that I need to know in order to come to a determination that what's going on is safe? And it was a lack of inquisitiveness on the part of the scrutiny process that in part didn't lead to it, but in part didn't do its work preventing what took place. And I think it's really vital that the scrutiny process does its work well. That's that part of it, the health scrutiny. I will just segue into the scrutiny of ourselves and also the scrutiny of any successor body to the local enterprise partnership. In my view, the scrutiny of the local enterprise partnership has not been good. It would need to improve dramatically. When I look to the south of the county and the scrutiny of the Greater Birmingham and Solihull LEP, that is more robust and challenging, and I think any successor body to the LEP, if that is what is imposed upon us, would need to be better scrutinised than we currently do, because I do think that we do need to hold people to account for the public money that they're spending on behalf of our residents, and also we need to be seen to be asking challenging questions of those people who are running those organisations. So that's my take on it. Does anybody have any observations about the Code of Joint Working Arrangements with District and Borough Councils for Health Scrutiny? No? Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Just to welcome this report, actually, and say that we will take it through and ensure it's in our constitution at Newcastle Borough. I think you're quite right. We need a nimble sort of approach to health scrutiny because of the bodies that have come into being and are changing and developing, and so nothing drops between the chairs, so to speak. I'd just like to commend the joint scrutiny that was done and is still ongoing over Wally's Quarry and the issue we've had up in Newcastle over the odours from the quarry, and both the district health scrutiny and partnership scrutiny and also the county health scrutiny worked together and had a joint meeting up in Newcastle to scrutinise some of the health implications of that, which was greatly received by the local community. And also I believe that the chair of the health scrutiny is continuing to focus on that in their meetings and their work programme going forward. Thank you.
I would implore leaders to make sure that the councillors that you send to the health scrutiny committee have the confidence to ask the questions that are relevant to your area. Because it can become a bit of a sort of, a celebration of the successes that the local health colleagues have had. But there are also, that's fine. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. But there are also areas where questions and challenge are required. So, for example, in the Lichfield district area, the George Bryan Centre, which is actually in Lichfield district, this isn't in Tamworth, there are some challenging questions being asked of Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust around the future of that and how they came to the decisions they came. And it's for the districts and boroughs to ask those challenging questions about provision of healthcare in your area. Many of us are seeing the provision of primary care, particularly GP services, in decline, and accessibility to GP services in decline. It's really important that councillors who are part of these committees have the confidence to say to the representatives of the primary care sector, what are you doing about the provision of GP services in my area? I tried to get a GP's appointment in Lichfield, probably about 6 months ago. 64 attempts it took me to actually get through. And then when I did get through, at about 7 minutes past 8, the lady said all the appointments are gone. The deputy leader of the county council, I think he tried with his very young son to get through over 120 times to get through to an appointment. So things like that are why this is an important document and why we need to be working together to hold to account the health system. Anybody else want to add anything before we move to the recommendations? First recommendation is to consider and approve the revised Code of Joint Working Arrangements, brackets joint code. Why don't we just call it joint code? With the district and boroughs for health scrutiny. And the leaders of each district and borough consider adopting the joint code. I'd be grateful if you consider putting it through your council approval systems so it becomes part of your constitution. Should you have any difficulties in doing that because you're implacably opposed to some components of it, could you have private conversations with Mr. Eberly and the scrutiny team, and we'll seek to make variations where necessary. That's principally aimed at the officers, if that's possible, please. You've heard those two recommendations. All those in favour? That is unanimous. That was the final item on the agenda. There is no matters to be considered in private. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I say thank you very much indeed for your attention and participation. And for those of you that got elections coming up, best of luck. It's going to be an interesting election cycle. But hopefully look forward to seeing everybody around the table back here for the summer meeting in, when is it? 13th of July. Okay, thank you very much indeed.